Now you listen to me. I don't want any plastics. I don't want any ground floors. And I don't want to get married to anyone. You understand that? I want to do what I want to do. And you
And then the baby. So we are recording.
We're going.
Awesome.
We're live.
All right. I would like to start with a quick prayer with y'all. All right.
Let's do it.
So if we can bow our heads real quick. Father in heaven, thank you for bringing me together with Zack, Joseph, Larry, and Johnny. And we pray that this conversation that we have honors you, praises you, and we love you in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Well, thanks for having us. Thanks for coming on. I want to give people a little bit of context to how we even met you. So I met you today.
Today.
Yeah.
This morning in church. Zack met you a week ago, and we found this to be a theme so far in the past few weeks for our podcast, where we just meet people and we feel this nudge to have them on. And so we think your story is really cool and your message is really cool. And so we didn't get too much into it this morning because we wanted to save it to hear it first time here. So just to give probably a little bit of a poor introduction, because I don't even know much about you yet, but you're 40 years old?
39 going on 40
You're
this year.
39
Yes.
going on 40.
Mhm.
You do not look that.
So I
Not
claimed
at all.
40 already.
Yeah, you claimed 40
I
already.
claimed 40 already. It's already there.
And you started a business. You kind of went out on your own 5 years ago. It's turned into multiple businesses, and we'll get into all that. And then you've also been on a spiritual journey as well. You've been on different relational journeys too. And we think you have a really interesting experience inside of that a lot of people perspective inside of that a lot of people our age could really benefit from. And so I think I'd like to start, if you could give us a little bit of a background on yourself, where you grew up, and then kind of walk us through how you even ended up where you're at right now, so people have a context to who you are.
All right. So I'm going to really zoom through my first 35 years.
Okay.
Born and raised in Houston, Texas, right?
Nice.
3 hours away. Family, both parents are from Mexico, Monterrey specifically. Me and my sisters, I have 3 sisters. I'm the only boy. We're born and raised in Houston, Texas. Fast forward through my early ages, I've always gone to church, but in the beginning I was a Catholic, or at least that's what I was raised into. Walked away from the church when I was younger. When I turned 18, I made the decision, or 17, I made the decision that I was going to go to the Air Force and go to the military. So I did that. And I was in the military for 6 active years, 2 years reserve. And during the military, I was stationed in Germany. I was stationed in Wyoming, Cheyenne, Wyoming. I deployed to Kuwait, and then I deployed to Iraq. And then in between, I had a couple of other places that I kind of visited, but I don't really count those. We call those TDYs, temporary duty stations, very short visits. But then after I got out of the military in 2009, I made the decision to come back down to Texas, but I didn't want to go to Houston. When I was 18 or 17, 16, actually for the longest time that I can remember, I wanted to leave Houston. I did not want to live there. There was just something about Houston that just didn't jive with me. So when I got out of the military, I was looking to see where I can go. New York was an option. Colorado was an option. And then, of course, going back to Texas was an option.
Where were you when you got out of the military? Where were you living?
Living?
Yeah, where were you living?
Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Okay.
Cheyenne.
Okay.
So I believe that's the capital. Just north of Denver.
Okay.
Maybe an hour and a half north of Denver. Okay, that's Cheyenne, Wyoming, in the high mountains. And then moved here to Austin, and I've been in Austin since 2009.
Oh, wow.
Quick
Dang,
little...
yeah,
You've been here for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
What, 15, 16 years almost? No, 15. This will be 15 years.
Wow.
Dang, so I was like...
Sure, you've seen Austin grow quite a bit.
Oh my God.
You moved here when I was in like 5th grade, dude.
That's all right. So you were what, 11 years old?
Yeah, 10 or 11.
Mm-hmm.
2009. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Probably 11 because you're two.
6 years old.
You're 2 years older than me, so.
Yeah, I think it was 11. Yeah.
That's good stuff. I love it though. I love it. I love it. I love meeting everybody, honestly,
Yeah.
from different ages. And again, some of the things that I've experienced back in the day, I can't imagine what y'all are going through. Now, I don't have my phone on me, but we're in the age of technology where everybody's looking down. Back when I was growing up, we still had the TV, and so we were glued to the TV playing video games. And that was how I was raised, unfortunately. And now I look back at it and see it as a complete waste of time. Okay.
Really?
I got really good at video games. This was before Twitch. This was before it became a sensation to watch people play video games. I was never like that. I was always the type of like, okay, I'm waiting for my turn. I'm waiting for my turn. I'm waiting to kick your butt in this game. I was never the type that wanted to just watch other people play. So I don't get this culture. To each their own. I was good at video games, but I never thought of it as being a career like it would be now. So I just decided to go to the military and get a trade.
Yeah.
Now, in the military, I was a cop, MP, and primarily did security, a little bit of law enforcement, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And leaving the military, I knew I didn't want to continue with that. So once I got to Austin, I went to school to become a paramedic. But at the same time of going to school for paramedicine, I was going to school to get my degree in kinesiology and nutrition. So I was doing everything at the same time on top of work and all that kind of stuff. Because I never knew what direction I really wanted to go, but I knew 911 was fun. Okay. Paramedicine was going to be a safe job. And that's kind of how I grew up. I was basically encouraged to pick those safe jobs and always have money in the bank and pay your bills and just play it cool, play it safe.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And that's what I've been doing since, I stopped being a paramedic back in 2020. 2021 was the last time I wore a uniform for paramedicine.
Was that before or after COVID?
That was just right after COVID. January of 2021 is the last time I was actually a paramedic, played the role of a paramedic.
Dang, so were you, how was it being a paramedic through 2020? Was it...
This could be an entirely different conversation, but I will say this. I didn't survive the military because I talk back. When I see something wrong, I speak my mind. The military doesn't like that. They like people that fall in line. And I can fall in line, but at the same time, I'm questioning things. I questioned a lot of what I saw in the military, what I saw in Iraq especially. The same thing happened during COVID. I was working the isolation facility here in Austin. And I would speak my mind and raise my voice speak my mind when I saw concerns.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I was told to, this is what we need to be doing. And I was against a lot of things of what we were doing, but it was a job. I felt it as I was doing a good thing for people, for others, but in the end of the day,
I would love to talk about that sometime.
We can definitely talk more in depth about my thoughts on COVID specifically. Let's just say I didn't always wear a mask. I was very comfortable being around COVID individuals with or without a mask. And I never got COVID. And even to this day, I still haven't gotten COVID.
Wow.
And for the record, I don't have the jab.
It's a miracle
None
alive,
of them.
dude.
None of them. The last time I got a jab was 2012 or 2011, and I had to do that to be a paramedic to do my clinicals on the truck. But ever since then, I haven't gotten anything.
So was that 2020? But you mentioned that you had started your business. You made that jump. Was that like 2 years before that, or was that? No. So in 2018, I was going to Freedom Church and going through some struggles because of some relationship issues that had just happened the year prior in 2017.
And in 2018, I was going through a whole different shift in mindset that there was something in me from one of the services, October 18th, I think not March, sorry, October 26th, 2018, if I recall correctly. Pastor Benito gave a sermon on doing what you feel you're being called to do. And at the time, I was dabbling with the idea of putting on a toy drive because of me benefiting from one, regrettably. And I say that because I don't feel like, even at the time, even though we were poor, I didn't feel like I belonged in that, to benefit from that toy drive. So I was thinking, somebody else could be sitting in my seat. Another child could be sitting in my seat. And granted, I'm 8, 9, 10 years old. I don't know how old I was. I just knew I didn't feel like I belonged in that seat. Fast forward to 2018, I was dabbling with it, gave that speech, and I made the decision that day to start to do my own toy drive. And that initial toy drive in 2018 is what kicked off everything else. So in 2019, I began working a night shift as a paramedic. And that's what made me consider, if the toy drive was semi-successful, what else can I do? I had started an LLC back in 2013 with an ex of mine that didn't go anywhere. It was called dtlabel, dog tag label. We didn't do anything with it. We toyed with ideas. We wanted to do apparel, and nothing came about. So I left it alone. 2019, I said, I'm going to revive it. I'm not with her anymore, but I'm going to revive it, and I'm going to see what I can do with it. And so dtlabel was officially my first business that I just decided to take a risk. And to start, where's the puppy? I was doing dog bandanas.
Oh, really?
Dog bandanas.
That's cool.
That was my first thing. The website's still up too, unfortunately. It's just there, but it ain't doing nothing. I just had fun. I had my baby girl, and I was making her bandanas. Like, why don't I just do this for other people too? I know how to measure and all that kind of stuff. So I designed a website, and dtlabel is what really kicked off the whole entrepreneurship. That didn't take off as well as I thought it would be. But then in 2019, I was doing my second season of bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding. And during that season, while I was trying to put together not the toy drive, the dtlabel, and grow it, I was prepping for competition, and I was going international. I was going across the US to compete. And I had so many people bombarding me because of my physique was looking good for coaching. And I was like, no, go talk to this person, go talk to that person. These are the guys that are going to take care of you. I'm not in the right mindset yet. I know the training, the nutrition. I just don't want to right now. But I had so many people pushing for or requesting training that by the time I finished my competition season in November of 2019, I made the decision to start my own personal training services, which is Fuel and Burn now. And
on the cut,
Fuel and Burn right here. And January, February, and the beginning of March of 2020 were fantastic. I was still working as a paramedic because I had my main job, and I was getting online signups, and I was getting in-person training. I would go to people's houses or their apartment gyms, and I would train them there, and everything was going great until March 20th, 2020, where everybody decided to just quiet down, lock their doors, and stay inside and listen to the government. And
it's
so
tough. Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. I just basically said, I send off all my clients and I said, good luck. Here's a final meal plan. Here's a workout program. I don't know how to go about this. I'm not going to stress y'all out with having to pay me, and I'm not going to stress y'all out in saying you have to buy these foods to eat or anything like that. So good luck.
That was a tough time for a lot of gym owners, especially. I mean, for everybody, obviously. But yeah, I remember a lot of gym owners closing down because, there's nothing you can do.
Nothing. I know a couple of gyms. I'm a coach at Big Tech's gym, and we were trying to, and I say they were trying to really work with the rules that were set in place to try to abide by the rules. no more than 6 people, no more than 10 people. I can't remember what the rules were exactly, but they were trying their darnest to try to keep up with that. And thankfully, Big Tech's didn't shut down. We were able to maintain a lot of memberships. I maintained my membership there, and we were able to coast. But yeah, 2020 was just a very, very interesting year. We could have a whole discussion on that year because so much happened that you can go down so many rabbit holes, so many conspiracies. You know, we have testimonies on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was interesting. But that was Fuel and Burn. Fuel and Burn officially started January 2020, and as fast as it grew, it collapsed. So going back to what you were saying, it was first a toy drive in 2018, but that's why I dabbled. It was either 35 or 36 is when I actually decided to take the risk, because dtlabel wasn't really a risk because I still had my paramedic job. When I started Fuel and Burn, it wasn't really a risk because I still had my paramedic job as well. And so I was doing this online, doing the dtlabel. Miracles of Christmas toy drive is only once a year, so I only had to play with that for about a month and a half to 2 months to make that a possibility or to make that happen. The real risk for entrepreneurship happened January 2021, a year after COVID, or me working with COVID roughly, because I think I worked with COVID for 9 or 10 months. I left the paramedic world entirely. And so that was my cushion. That was my safe job. So I had no job.
Wow.
And I made the decision that I'm going to go full on with Fuel and Burn Fitness. And that's going to be my main role. I had enough money to hold me over for a couple of months, but 2021 was a very rough year because the money was just going down, down, down. I'm just like, I hired a man named Josh Job to help me initially with helping me brand Fuel and Burn Fitness, and didn't take off still. It wasn't until the fall of 2021, almost 6 months, no, it was almost like 8 months, 10 months later, that I finally got a decent income where I was able to sustain life. The whole time, I'm trying to maintain a happy attitude, smiling, showing up for my clients, and pretending like everything's fine and dandy. And inside I'm screaming. It was a huge risk because I didn't know if it was going to be a success. In 2021, people were still too scared to come out of their houses and go to the gym, especially a gym like Big Tech's. Go there, everybody's there is serious about their training. You're going to get a transformation, you're going to hit a goal, and then you're going to go off into one of the 3-4 disciplines of bodybuilding, powerlifting, CrossFit, some MMA dabble, you know. So very, very
so you took a big jump. That's a huge jump.
Yep. And I don't know how to encourage anybody else to take the jump other than you just have to do it. And see, the thing is, I've walked away from the church numerous times throughout my lifetime. Okay. Start off Catholic, I walked away from the Catholic Church. Gone to Christian churches, but even those I've walked away from. I wasn't really, I believe in God, I love God, but I wasn't really in a relationship with God during the 2020 or 2021 year. Or realistically, not even 2022.
Yeah.
Prayers here and there, but nothing to this level of where I'm at today. It was literally me just having faith in myself and hoping that something comes and just working at it nonstop, not giving up, pretending like everything's good, and just doing what I can to make things work. At the time, I did have an ex, and I call her an ex. Obviously, she was a girlfriend then, and she had a daughter, and so we were all living together. So it helped a little bit in the sense of other things, you know, working together to make house work. But as far as training, all that kind of stuff, that really, a lot of that fell on me. and just grinding through. And I don't like to use that word grinding, but there's no better word. You literally just have to grind.
Yeah.
You have to take the risk and you have to just move forward with it. And you have to dedicate 90% of your time. Some will say 100. There's no way you can dedicate 100% of your time.
Yeah.
But your social
True.
life does disappear.
Mm.
If there's drugs and alcohol involved, you have to let them go. There's no room for that. They really get they get distracting,
Yeah.
and you just have to grind and hope for the best.
That's it, man.
Mhm.
Jeez. All right. I think everybody looks for that magic piece of advice, that secret.
Mhm.
And it's just, you got to take that jump, have imperfect action,
Mhm.
and do practical things. Like you had enough money saved up for at least the jump itself, but to close the gap, you had to really put your head down.
Mhm.
And so I think it can really be just as simple as that.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be this big
Yeah.
complicated thing.
The mindset is as simple as that.
I have a question actually.
Yes.
What helped you get through like the lowest parts while you're grinding through it? I know
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, they have highs and lows. So whenever you're at your lowest, what helped you keep pushing forward and not just say, all right, screw this, I'm going back to a comfortable way of living?
So I'm going to give you two answers. The first answer is when I started this journey, I had my ex and I had her baby girl, and then I had my dog, my baby girl, and they were my purpose. So I had them in the back of my mind as I'm working for them. I'm doing this for them. Provide them a life, provide them a home, provide them food. And these are all man mindsets, purpose for men. And so that's what I had to keep me going during those lows. I knew somebody was relying on me, so I wanted to make sure I did my best to provide for them. The second answer, I am currently going through one of the toughest times in my life right now.
Mm.
That's been lasting in 3 days, it's going to be officially 1 year. I don't have my ex anymore. I don't have her daughter anymore. And I just had to put my dog down a couple of weeks ago. I don't know what's keeping me going.
Mm.
I don't have an answer there. I wake up every morning and I just do. For no other reason than God gave me a life and He's keeps waking me up every single morning. And I pray that He shows me what He wants me to do for that particular day.
Mm.
But other than that, it's really hard to keep going right now. And I have to do that with a smile.
Mm.
That's the other thing. I do say, even a fake smile is still a smile. I think there was said in church today, the joy, happiness versus joy. Happiness is a perishable feeling. Joy is always maintained, but you have to have joy in the good and the bad. And it's just this feeling. I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to get there. I have personal goals, but it's really hard for somebody to strive for those personal goals when it's for themselves. I don't know what it is about me or how I was raised that makes me not put myself in the center of attention,
Mhm.
because I like to put others in the center of attention and work for them. That's in the Bible somewhere. Several times, and those are the same passages that I keep reading over and over to remind me that it's not about me. I had a different pastor tell me it's not always about you. I don't know how to use that word always. It's not always about me. I say it's never about me because unfortunately in my experience in my 40 years it has never been about me. And I have to be okay with that. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to talk about that. I don't know how to say this is how you should do it, this or that and the other. I can't. There's no magic word there. There's no simplification there. I literally just wake up every single morning knowing this is the goal that I set for Fuel and Burn, for my other businesses, whatever the case is. And this is what I want to try to do today. And just do it.
Do you feel like the amount of work that you do, because I mean, you work a ton, right? So do you think that kind of helps you like stay, I guess, like clear-headed? Or do you think that
Great question.
doesn't help?
Great question. There's a lot of people that are going to relate to what I'm about to say. They're going through so much that they would rather fill their time and their brain with tasks and work so they don't have to think about what's going on in their life on the inside.
Distract themselves, essentially.
Distract yourself and just constantly distract. The problem with that is you're essentially bottling everything inside. Eventually that bottle gets full and everything comes pouring out.
Yeah.
And that's what's been happening this past year. For a whole year.
You feel like it's just bottling up?
Everything. No, not the
It's been coming out.
Oh, it's been exploding.
Everything been exploding out. And that's a great word, exploding. Been exploding. But then what is God's prayer? Even when you're fasting and you look and you feel miserable, anoint your head, wash your face, and face the world as if everything's good. Doesn't matter how much you're suffering during a fast. You have to show a good face to everybody and do what you need to do. So I'm not saying that I'm going through a fast. Unfortunately, I'm not going through a fast because I'm about to compete in bodybuilding once again. In a couple of weeks, and I'm gonna be doing this kind of competitive prep until August of 2024. So I still got a couple of months of this specific competitive diet. And then after that, I'm going to get so fat. I'm going to be eating everything. All the donuts that we had today at service, all going to be consumed.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned something too about the scripture, and I think that what you're doing is you're not allowing your circumstances to dictate your perspective. And like in those verses that you're describing, God is saying, listen, when you're fasting and you're seeking me and you're hurting, don't use that as a way of pride showing that, oh, well, I'm hurting more than you, or I'm sacrificing more than you. I'm being closer to God because I'm fasting. Like, look at me, I'm fasting. God says, well, they'll have their reward. They have it at their attention of man. You're seeking your reward from God because you're not trying to victimize or seek attention through your circumstances. And I think that's a very healthy thing to do, not just spiritually, but mentally and physically. It's just a healthy thing to do, even if you're not religious or spiritual or whatever. So I think that's an important distinction to make too, that you're doing.
Yep, you're absolutely correct. The second part of that, consider this too. How many people care that you're going through some issues?
True.
We live in a very selfish world, unfortunately. So it's very rare to find somebody that you can open up to fully. And to those that have that particular person, hold on to them, whether it's friends, whether it's your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, wherever the case is, hold on to them because everybody needs that. Everybody needs that one person that they can rely on, just be extremely vulnerable with.
Yeah.
Because the rest of society doesn't.
You used the term suffer in silence earlier when we were talking this morning about how men a lot of times will have to go through these things without an outlet or way to speak about it. And I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are in terms of how society, like specifically Western society, puts these pressures on men and causes them or pushes them towards that suffering in silence.
We do it to ourselves. We do it to ourselves. Men have such big prides.
Yeah.
We look for, how do I want to say this? We actually don't look, we look for that. We want people to perceive us as superheroes, as gods, as invincible. Nothing can touch us. We're all lone wolves. We can take whatever comes our way because we're strong, we're macho. Okay. So when it comes time for us to actually need that outlet, we've already pushed everybody away because, like, oh shoot, Zach's already got it. He's stoic, strong.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his things together. We don't need no. Oh, you're hurting? No, that's not Zach. No, there's no way. There's no way. So we do it to ourselves. I know I've done it to myself a lot. When I have had my issues, I don't reach out. There are a handful of people that say, "Oh, you can reach out whenever you want," and I don't use those resources. A lot of times, it's because I don't feel they're going to be able to relate to my situation. So consider this. There's churches out there that have groups for different types of folks. How many churches, how many groups are there for single men, specifically single, no kids, no nothing? There's nothing. We're a neglected group because we have pushed so hard to show our pridefulness. We're good. We don't need that. We're strong, mentally strong, physically strong. So we do it to ourselves. I don't think it's society. I think it's men ourselves. And I don't want to even blame our fathers because I think they had the same issues. Now, I will say with this generation in particular that has their phone in their hands 24/7, it's a lot harder than back in the day. Let's go back to at least the 80s or 90s, where you had to physically drive to see another man and to be relatable, whether it's a garage or bar or whatever the case is, shooting golf, shooting pool, going shooting. You had to physically be there. In today's day and age, everybody just FaceTimes or texts or gets on social media or that kind of thing, you know. So the connection has gotten a lot harder. So we're doing it to ourselves, and we're not doing anything about it either.
Yeah.
We're just going with the flow of social media.
Is it that, I'm curious, I'm just asking an open-ended question. Is it that because technically we're more connected than ever through social media, but is it that the type of connection that social media is or creates is just much more shallow?
It's an illusion.
Or an illusion of connection. Maybe is it that?
Mm-hmm.
So it gives us the illusion of connection without giving us the fulfillment of actually a deep human connection.
Think about it this way. You post a picture and you're wearing what you're wearing and you're smiling. It's like long week, but we're going to grind through, and you get a couple of likes, maybe a couple of comments. You got it, Tiger. Keep going. Fire emoji, fire emoji, fire emoji, you know, versus you meeting up with Zach and you see each other and you say, it was a hell of a week. Yeah. Now Zach goes, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
That's the difference.
There's a lot of power in that.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about all the time how having that brotherly connection with someone that you know just has your back and is there for you, like, and is gonna love you no matter what. It kind of gives you this freedom when you go out into the world and you're putting yourself out there and trying to, do whatever it is you're trying to do. You know that no matter what happens, no matter who, comes against you or whatever, you have that brother to fall back on. And so you have that, it gives you that freedom of being who you want to be and, do whatever you want to do, accomplish the things you want to accomplish, and be unafraid of the world and unafraid of rejection, because at the end of the day, I can come back, sit down with Joseph, like, dude, I'm just going through this stuff, man. And I can unload all of that.
That bottle.
Yeah.
Without it getting
Unload that. Yeah.
all the way to the
yeah,
top.
Yeah. Before it explodes.
Unloading. Perfect.
Yeah.
You have to.
So sorry, I just want to just expound on this a little bit more, because I think what we're trying to do with the second floor experience is find a way to create a space in which that sort of deeper connection is easier. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what are some elements of that deep connection with another friend, another man, that it doesn't have to even be that, but a deeper connection with another human being. What are the elements of that in a space? Like, what are the elements of that connection? And how do we create basically a way to connect that's not social media in the shallow way that we've been connecting now? Are there elements that we can maybe reproduce or just maybe put in an area or a space or a platform, and just it's more conducive towards that deeper fulfillment versus the shallow likes and comments and stuff like that?
So some of the churches that I've gone into the past have that very rushed mentality of get into church, listen to the service, and then you're rushing to leave. Okay.
Yeah.
True.
Because I got to go eat, I got to go mow the lawn, football Sunday, whatever the case is. You have other endeavors that you want to go attend to.
Or they're starting the next service.
Or starting the next service, yes.
Yeah.
There's no connection right there. So number one, I'm going to say you have to make time for it.
So true.
You have to physically, literally put yourself in a space where you're there for the purpose of connection. I love organic connections as well. We had an organic connection last week.
Yeah.
But you were there hanging out after service. I approached you and we spent 5 minutes chatting, and we had a connection, or an organic connection.
Yeah.
But you just being there allowed it. Imagine if you had church is over,
dipped.
and I did. We wouldn't be here right now.
Right.
Okay. So we have to make time. Second part is finding common ground. You're not going to connect with somebody you don't have common ground with. If you have more disagreements right off the bat, and nothing's gonna come of it. So there has to be a little bit of common ground. And I guess the third is repeat.
Yeah.
You literally just have to repeat it. Make more time in the future time. Connect. In a fast-paced world, I was always the type that never made time for anybody else because I was always working, always grinding, doing what I needed to do to take care of my family, take care of Exes, take care of my dog, whatever the case is. That was my first issue.
So how did you see not making the time for those deeper connections affect you this past year? Like, what are the fruits of those choices?
Prior to this past year, I had relied solely on my ex. I had friends, I know people, that kind of thing, and chat from time to time over the phone. but never made time for them in person. I was always too busy or giving it to my family.
Mm-hmm.
So when I lost the family, who did I have to fall back on? Am I going to be coming back to my friends, crawling on my hands and knees, going, "Hey, sorry I ignored you for the past couple of years. Can you come talk to me?" No, because I'm too prideful.
Mm,
Right. Yeah.
mm.
I'm not going
That's
to.
so true. Gosh.
It goes right back to it. It goes right back to it. So what I've had to do is, I'm not going to say suffer in silence. I've definitely, while I don't have somebody to pop the bottle open and just let loose on entirely, I'm not quiet about it. If, it's like, "Hey, did you have a great weekend?" Nah, it's actually not great. This is why. But it's okay because now we have this week to work on and we move forward. So I unload briefly the issues, but then I look forward, switch it to great gratitude, and look forward to, okay, let's look at this week. Let's see what we can accomplish this week, or whatever the case is. It doesn't have to be about the week. It could be about a situation. It could be about the events that I put in.
Yeah.
Event didn't go as well as I anticipated it, but I have this next event and it's going to be much better because I'm going to do this, and this different from this one. And this is why it's going to be better.
I would say, I mean, I feel like that's a pretty positive thing.
That's very,
right? Like,
I think
'cause
that's very healthy.
I think some people can get caught on the other end where it's like, all I do is unload, and there's never a, but okay, what are we gonna do to solve this?
Women? I'll say it. It's really hard. I'm a devil on women real quick. Because guys are so very different. We are designed to see a problem and fix a problem, whereas women just want to unload and discuss a problem and want you to feel empathy towards the problem. And that's why we don't mesh. We don't know how to continue to hear the same problem over and over and over without it being resolved.
True.
We can do it once, maybe twice, but the third time it's like, girl, we're going through the same patterns.
Yeah.
I
would say I do know, I have met some guys that do fall into that trap. For sure. I mean, it's definitely,
no, you're 100%.
For sure, it's not like a cookie cutter or whatever.
Correct.
But I do think it's definitely more common in guys now, it's because of social media too and technology. I think it's easier just for people in general to fall into that trap of looking at your phone and everything and seeing the image of success that everyone is trying to put out. And it's very easy just to compare yourself all the time to what you're seeing, but you don't know like what they're going through in their lives or anything. It's just, you get caught in this trap of, oh, me, like I can't be successful. I can't do this. I can't do that. And there's no way at all, like no effort to try and figure out a better path to solve the problem. But I mean, I think I would probably agree that it seems to be, I don't know, maybe a little more common with women, but
women are innate in that. The majority of the women fall into that. Obviously, there's some women out there that are very
100%.
They will find the issue and fix it and plan out and plan of action.
Yes.
And vice versa, just like you said.
I think naturally women are a little bit more emotional.
Yes.
But that's not a bad thing.
No, we are created differently.
Yeah.
We're two completely different species. I will say the 90s hit the boys hard. And the 90s, I don't think it was the 80s so much, but the 90s definitely started pushing a more feminine product in boys. And what I mean by that is boys started to become more feminine. Because I was a part of that. Okay. When I was growing up and going through elementary school, the amount of positivity was beyond overwhelming. I was rejecting it. I had a hard time with constantly being praised for doing a crap job, constantly being told I'm special in my own unique way, constantly being allowed to get away with a lot of things that I shouldn't have gotten away with. And so that generation, 90s generation, of school-age boys were just becoming more and more and more feminine. And now fast forward to now, we have a bunch of beta males out there, the feminine guys. So yes, you're absolutely right. There is an increase, an enormous amount of boys out there, beta men, I don't even want to call them men, that are just, all they do is act like women.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell into that trap too, which is why it took me almost 15 years in my adult life to actually make that jump, to take risks like I should have been doing this whole time instead of playing it safe. Because I was always told, you're going to be special, you're going to do great things, you're going to do great things, you're going to do great things. I'm over here going, I haven't done anything with my life. What's going on? Is it something that's wrong with me? It was a message that kept getting pounded into my head when I was younger. And if I went through that, I can't imagine some of the other guys that were forced through that too.
Yeah.
So I could have been somewhere different if I had this mindset, or if I had somebody like me back when I was younger, pushing me to be a little bit harder on me. See, and I'm going to go back to what I was saying earlier about we are the reason why we are alone and we suffer alone. We want to be prideful. We want to be strong. We want to be the lone wolves. We want to be able to do everything ourselves. Why can't we have this mindset towards life and success and all that other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I just had a conversation with Joseph at the coffee shop a little while ago, how that's kind of a trap I fall into a lot of times too, where I find it difficult a lot of times for me to ask for help. Especially I was telling him, like, especially when I think that I can, when I think that I can do it, I don't feel like I need to ask for help at all, really. And I would almost rather not have any help, But that's something where I was telling Joseph, that's like, I think that's one of his gifts. He's very good at reaching out to people, connecting with people, networking with people, and gaining their insight, even when we might be doing a good job, or we might feel like we have it figured out, whatever. But I've learned through him how beneficial it can be just to gain other people's insight, even if you don't think you might need it. But you never know, like, who you're going to come into contact with that might have a better solution than I do, So
and I can trace that back to my dad, who taught me how to be very spiritually aware of my ego. And he had a really tough upbringing, like similar, sort of like kind of similar to your story in a sense, a little bit, in his 20s, where he was just, it just was really prideful. And he'll tell you that. And he had literally like a come to Jesus time where he has been going through like that sanctification process since then. It was before he met my mom. And I have benefited so greatly from his insight in that sense, because he told me, he said, Joseph, you can go do the exact same thing I did. You're welcome to. You're free to. But just understand that that's going to come with a lot of regret and a lot of wasted time. Or option B, you can take the wisdom from me and learn from my mistakes without ever having to experience them. And you can make the most of the time that you've been given. And thankfully, I decided to do that. And I think one of the fruits of that has been, I have zero problem asking people for advice, asking their ideas, asking for help when I don't have the answer, when I'm struggling, because my dad showed me that that is actually the healthy way to go. And like, why would I torture myself with my pride and saying, no, you have to do this yourself, if I can humble myself and maybe make a new friend doing it because they can show me how to do it, and I would rather be empowered that way. And I'll even ask people who I don't really think is necessarily ahead of me in a certain area, but I still want to hear their perspective. And it's a lot of times in those conversations where I may come about it with a little bit of pride of like, oh, this person, I feel like I'm just objectively a little bit farther ahead in this arena, or I know a little bit more. Let me ask them anyway. It's oftentimes through just getting through my little bit of pride there that I get those gold nuggets of, wow, I did not see it that way. Oh my gosh. And I think that has really been sort of like some rocket fuel for my personal growth. And I wish that I love this conversation because I think it's going to help a lot of people hopefully realize that there's another way of doing things, and it's okay. It's okay to ask for help.
It is okay to ask for help. And you said a beautiful thing. You have your father. That is a big thing. Do you have your father?
Yeah.
That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. That's what's missing in a lot of guys' lives these days. They don't have, and you said he had his spiritual awakening. So it tells me that he's in line with God, and that is a true man right there.
It is.
That is an absolute true man. There's not that many of them out there. We need to reach out to them. We need to learn from them, and just like he told you, we need to dig into their wisdom and use it for ourselves. We need to really. There's so much there. He gave you the perfect explanation. You can do whatever you want, but you're going to have regrets in the future. I have regrets. I look at my 20s and my early 30s and go, why did I waste all that time spending money on strip clubs, alcohol, and doing absolutely nothing in my life? So much wasted. All these tattoos. People ask me now, it's like, oh, you got great tattoos, and they want to have a conversation about it. I don't care about these tattoos. Over $3 grand, $4 grand, $5 grand worth of tattoos. I have no idea. I see it as a waste of time or a waste of money now. I have it. I'm going to keep it. It's now part of my identity because I did try laser removal, and it was more painful than getting a tattoo. So I said, I'm good. I'm just going to leave them on. Not that bad. But yes, there can be a lot of regret. And here's the other part. I'm trying not to see it as a regret.
Yeah.
I see them as lessons. Everything that I'm doing, I have to look at it as a lesson. And if I can pass that lesson on to others, that'd be fantastic. I would love to pass those lessons on to offspring of mine, but I don't have any kids. So what do I have? I have a story that I can share.
100%.
So going back to what Larry was asking, what helps you get through those low periods? Right now, I don't have anything. I just wake up in the morning. I ask for God, put me in the situations that you feel you need me in, and that's all I can do. And eventually, something happens. Something good happens every single day, and I pray on that, and I'm grateful for that. Man, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and just to one of your earlier points, is another thing that I realized that my dad did was he first had to humble himself to me in order he unlocked that door for me to even receive any wisdom at all in the first place, because he could have very easily just propped up himself to me as dad, the hero, the perfect one, awesome, great. And instead he humbled himself and said, hey, here's some things I did that I'm not proud of. But I think so many men are afraid to do that because they think that other people will look down on them. But actually the reverse happened for me. I looked up to him more because of his humility. And it's in that humility that he gave me that key to unlock the wisdom in my life that I'm now reaping from several years after moving out, because I'm able to take that skill with me and talk to so many other men, so many other people about, and gain a plethora of these other perspectives and these other stories. But if he had never humbled himself inside of our family unit, that never would have been possible. And now I get to give that gift to my kids, because your kids will oftentimes 80% pick up what they're modeled. So if you're a prideful father, your son and your daughter, they're going to pick up on that. They're going to pick up on that pride. No matter if you're saying things like humility, saying wise things, they're feeling your pride. They're going to pick up on that. And so as you were kind of going through that, that reminded me of sort of the practicality of his wisdom that has given me this skill, I'd say. So that's what I want to do for my kids.
Yes, yes, yes. We it's the first 5 years of life, the brain is just the biggest sponge ever. So a lot of what happens in your family gets engraved into your brain. And so despite you growing up and saying, I'm never going to be like my dad, or girls saying, I'm never going to be like my mom, whatever happened within those first 5 years is going to be engraved. So moving forward, you can't really do much from there, but you can establish a set of skills and values as you continue to grow, and then that can at least combat if there's any bad things that were kind of locked in, and to produce something like yourself now, that in your early 20s you can humble yourself, you can ask for help, you can do a lot of the things that other men can't do. So I think that's a beautiful thing. You had a good father. You had a good
awesome.
father. But a lot, and I bring that 5 years because those first 5 years, because there's so many young adults and adults nowadays that are just the split image of their parents, and they don't know why they're so angry, why they're so emotional, why they're so resentful, why they're what all these negative things. And they say, I never wanted to be like my mom, never wanted to be like my dad. It's engraved in you. You can't get away from it. So you can either engrave goodness or engrave bitterness, envy, jealousy.
Think about all the things that you've overcome in your life, that maybe you didn't get the greatest start ever, but now your testimony is not only is a blessing to like us and younger people or anybody, it's going to be a blessing to your future kids, future family, whatever. And they're going to get to, your ceiling is going to be their floor, in the sense of you're passing on those gifts to them, saying, hey, I'm not going to, if you want to choose to, great, but I'm not going to provide an environment where you're going to have to go through the same things I'm doing. That's going to take me 15 years to work through. And I don't know if that's a good segue or not, but I wanted to talk to you.
It's a beautiful mindset. Yes. I will say, I would love that. Love to have a family, love to have a wife, love to have kids. I don't know what's in the cards, because I'm going to go back to the fact that I am turning 40 this year officially, and I still have had none of that. I would love it. And I have always wanted that since I was a teenager. I've wanted to be a father. And now I've reached 25, 30 years later, still empty. So at this point, God's will be God's will. I still have this knowledge. Do I hold on to it, or do I try to help others that ask for it? Can't just go out there blindly and just pick like, all right, I'm going to help you out. Come over here. I'm going to give you all my wisdom. Somebody who doesn't want to be helped, they're not going to be helped. You can't help somebody that doesn't want to be helped.
Right, yeah.
But I can at least give my wisdom, my knowledge, my testimony, my experiences to those who do want to hear it, such as yourselves, and help encourage y'all to do certain things and not make the same mistakes, because take from everybody. That's the biggest way of getting wisdom, is learning from multiple people. And that's one thing I like to do too. I don't like to just stick to one person. I like to hear multiple stories and hear multiple testimonies, so I can pick and grab the good stuff and what can be applied to me. Because one of the hardest things to do is be relatable. I'll tell you this right now, there's very few people that can say they've gone through similar experiences as me, because I've gone through some extremely traumatic experiences in my younger years, middle school age years. You got the military, and then you have this whole past year that's just been a cluster. So it's really hard for me to want to seek out, not seek out, but to find somebody that can relate to me, that I can talk to. And I'm going to go back to this. I can't find that person. So what I do is I just stick to myself and I do my own thing. And then I wake up every morning. This is the task that I got to do. Nobody cares about what's going on in my life. So I'm just going to do what I need to do for my businesses, for myself, to keep a roof over my head so I can continue going down this path that I don't know if God put it in front of me, but I'm here. This is what I know what I'm doing. This is what I know I'm good at. And I pray that I'm praising him and glorifying him in some way, shape, or form. And that's all I can do right now. But in the process, if there's somebody that wants help or needs help or has been put in my path to provide some sort of resource, financially, emotionally, spiritually, I'm there.
How did you deal with the pressures that society and culture puts on people to reach certain milestones in their lives? You gotta be married by this time. You gotta have a house by this time. You gotta have kids by this time. What was that like for you? And what would be your advice to other young people that may be feeling those pressures?
It's a very interesting pressure because it's not necessarily society that puts that pressure on. Specifically for women, they are pressured biologically. Okay, they do have a time clock.
Right.
If a man wants to have children, it's going to be very difficult to commit to somebody who's 35, 45, 50 years old. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So women have more of a societal pressure, biological societal pressure to reach certain marks in their life more than men. It's really hard because women are also being told that they need to be independent. They need to work as hard as men. They need to earn as hard as men. They need to be men, basically. So I feel bad for women more than men because they do have a biological. I will tell you this right now, when it comes to dating, it's really hard for me to look at a 35-year-old and say, yeah, I can be happy with you because I want to have kids.
Mm.
I never felt the pressure of having to reach certain milestones at certain ages, be married by 25, 30 years old, have a house by 30, 35 years old, have grandchildren by the time you're 50, 55, because that's not going to happen for me, realistically. I never felt the pressure at all. I wouldn't even say I had the pressure for myself. I always wanted to have kids. Always. I was a young, so I was born and raised here in Houston, Texas. My whole family is in Monterrey. My family in Mexico is huge. I have tons and tons of cousins. Okay. And I am one of the oldest. I think I have two cousins, and then my sister are older than me, and then it's me, and then everybody else. There's about, just to throw a number out there, I want to say there's about 20 cousins, including my sisters, below me. So I'm at the top. So I raised a lot of those cousins. So in raising them, I was like, "Ooh, this is fun. I like this. I enjoy teaching them. I enjoy watching them walk, helping them talk, doing all this kind of stuff." So even when I was a kid, I knew I wanted to have kids. In my teenagers, I knew I wanted to get married. So I put those pressures on myself, regardless of what society was saying. Even with society saying you had to have a house, you have to have this, you have to have a good job, none of that really mattered to me. What mattered more, or what, not what mattered more, what influenced me more was my mother telling me that I needed to get a safe job, a secure job. And so that's why I chose the route of military. That's why I chose the route of paramedicine, because those were safe jobs. And she was always telling me, you have to do this, you have to do this just to make sure you have money always coming in. And that was my biggest influence. Society's pressure. It's hard to ignore those because it's so engraved into the American culture. Everybody's on a different timeline. what matters most in your particular timeline, regardless of what society wants, is your parents. Were they godly parents? And if they weren't godly parents, were they stable parents? If they weren't stable parents, were they present parents? And then the list goes on and on from there. If you can at least have parents that are present, you got a pretty decent shot at being a good adult. If you have stable parents, you have a really good shot at being a stable adult and probably get a good relationship. If you have godly parents, you have the highest chance for marriage success, children's success, financial success, career success. Because ultimately, going back to scripture, you're not working for yourself, you're working for God. Everything you do is for God. And then it goes downward. And then your family gets taken care of and it gets blessed. And then it goes downward. And then church gets blessed. And then it goes downward. Then everybody else, the community, gets blessed. But then after present parents, you run into emotionally unstable parents that are there, but they're on drugs, or then you go into single parenthood, and it's really hard in that aspect. So
Do you feel like what would you say, how close are you with your parents?
I love my parents. Love them to death. Absolutely. Very, very close. They don't have as much of an influence on me anymore because I realized what they were pushing me to do didn't work for me in the end.
Oh, you grew up Catholic, you said, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Up until probably my early teens is probably when I stopped going to church.
Were they pretty involved with
My
the
mom
Catholic
was.
Church? Okay.
My mom was. Yeah.
Mm.
My dad, not so much. He went to church, I believe, if I remember. I don't remember much. But yeah, my mom still goes to church. She converted to Christianity, and so that's what she does now. But no, relationship with parents is one thing, but how they raised you and what their influence was is really what's going to set you up as an adult. So I go back to you. Your father set you up in a great way. We didn't talk about you. Talk to us about how your parents.
My parents?
Yeah, and specifically your father.
Yeah, well, my dad, I would probably say, I mean, I have like the utmost respect for my dad. He probably is the best example of Christ's love I've ever witnessed, like in person, I would say. I mean, I can talk about my dad all day. Like I've never met somebody who has the amount of patience that he has, and the really just like gentleness that he has with people. Like he's always been a big dude. He's always been, he's a strong, like he's a man's man, and he do all like the mechanic work. He can do. He has so many. He's very intelligent. A lot of gifts. But he's like the most humble person I've ever met in my life. And so, in me growing up, we talked about this a couple episodes ago. I was just very like, as a kid, I was pretty crazy. I got spanked more than anyone else in my family. So, but my parents were really great in, I don't know, just letting me be a kid and keeping us away, like limiting us to the technology usage and all that stuff. And as a kid, like I hated having all those disciplines and everything, but they really did an awesome job of setting me up for success. And I think, and you're so right, like people don't realize how much of a blessing it is to have good parents in your life, to raise you in a way that sets you up for success. That can be the how'd you say it? Like in a way that their ceiling can be your floor, you know? So yeah, I mean, my dad, dude, he's a dude. He's a man.
He's a man.
Yeah, he's a man. Yeah, and my mom too. I love my mom. Like they're very relational people. They're they've always been very hospitable, always allowing people into the house. Like that's just how we've always been. Yeah. So having them, they're not super wealthy. They're not, they're just good people, solid people, that you can just always rely on. They'll always be there for you. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I told you my whole family is in Orlando, Florida.
Yes.
So yeah, it's hard for me to be away from them sometimes because I love them so much. But yeah, yeah.
Nice.
So I consider myself very fortunate, to be their son. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. That was for
what
you,
a way,
Mom and
that,
Dad.
that what a way to end it.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, beautiful. No, so I'm actually going to be competing in Orlando, Florida in the summer. So
Oh, no way.
yeah, that's
Okay.
going to be one of my shows. I'll be going down there and stripping down to my posing trunks and doing my thing up there.
Heck
Is it
yeah.
at like a convention center or?
Oh, I honestly don't remember. See, I'm really bad when it comes to things that I do for me.
Mhm.
Okay, for instance, when we talked about doing this podcast and that we were going to do it today, I barely got the address from you right as I was leaving. Okay, so I'm very last minute when it comes to things dealing with my own life. So I should know where this competition is. I know the city. I don't know what the location is going to be, if it's going to be in a hotel again, but that's going to be one of my proposed 8 competitions for this year. It's going to be in Florida, and then I have one in Georgia coming up in 6 weeks. That'll be my first show, and then I'm going to be competing in Houston in the second or third week of April. And then I have a
Dang, dude.
couple of international shows that I'm trying to
Oh, really?
go to as well. Yes, yes. And then finish in England would be nice. That's where I really, really want to finish. And then be done at the end of August. Eat a bunch of donuts, a pizza. Actually, I don't know. The main thing that I'm craving is burgers.
Oh, really?
And I think it's because of the amount of fat that's in it. My fat content has been going down, down, down. So
Is it just by coincidence that we have the Arnold Schwarzenegger book behind you right there? Or you see that giant book?
So actually,
That's funny.
that's a great point. The competitions that I am doing are natural bodybuilding. So in natural bodybuilding, there is some organizations, federations do polygraph testing, and they all do urinalysis at minimum. And then some of the extreme ones go as far as doing blood work.
Dang,
But that's pricey. So I am a natural athlete. I have been natural. I don't know how it was that at age 13, 14, 15, looking at the magazines, because we didn't have social media back then. We had magazines, and I'm not even going to try to lie to you which ones were it back then. But I would get these magazines and I would look at these big old guys like Arnold and Lou Ferrigno and I forget the other guy's name, Larry. Well, I forget. He was never an Olympian champion, but I would see these big old muscles on him, and I would think to myself, it's like I will never look like that because I don't ever want to touch the juice. Never want to touch the juice. And I knew that at a young age, and even growing up, it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. The usage of PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, but teenagers now are touching that stuff. It would happen back then, but now it's just so much more. Maybe it's the same, but now you can see it more on social media. But going back to it, I don't touch it. Not even TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. No form of hormone replacement therapy. So all these events that I'm doing are all natural shows, except for one. Actually, I lied. There's one that I'm doing that they don't do any testing. Not saying that like right before I jab myself, but there is a competition that I am going to be doing in Mexico in May. And that one is a non-tested event.
Okay, but is it like expected that everyone's natural there?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. There is going to be enhanced. The majority. The promoter is saying that he would like to put on a couple of divisions for natural athletes specifically. Okay. But as of right now, no. That organization is all they don't care. I don't want to say that they don't care. They really don't. But it costs money to put on these natural events.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The
Yeah.
drug testing takes, it costs a shiny penny, so we have to be mindful of that. Which is, I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to go back in time. We were talking about Fuel and Burn 2020. COVID happened. 2021, I broke away in January, and it took me a while to get this launched. In 2020, I'd finished my bodybuilding season, and I was approached by the promoters and directors of the organization that I competed in about putting on my own bodybuilding show. And I had always dabbled in the idea to the point where even before, and this is a key point in those that are interested in entrepreneurship, I would go to these events, take my notebook with me, and I would just sit there in the crowd and I would look at everything and take notes of the entire event, the good, the bad, and the ugly, how I can make things better, what I don't want to add to my event. And I would take those notes, put it away, and then go to the next event. And I'd sit there and I'd look around and just write. So I did that for the entire year of 2019 while I was competing, and I was still going to other bodybuilding events because for some reason, it's something in me. I had already done the toy drive in 2018, and I knew this was something that I wanted to dabble with. 2020, they approached me, do you want to do a show? I thought about it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And very appropriately, my first show in 2021 was called Genesis. So in 2021, Genesis. So while I had money saved up to try to venture off for myself, 80% of that went to Genesis. I invested so much into that show, into that event, and it cost me a lot of money because I wanted to make sure that there was nothing missing. Everybody had trophies, everybody had medals, we had the music, we had the lighting, we had everything that we needed for that event to make it a success. And so majority of 2021 was a struggle because despite me having some money left over, all that went to the show. And it was such a success that I had to take whatever money I had left over and start promoting for the next year for 2022 and put on Genesis again. So in shameless plug, April 6th, 2024, we have the 4th annual Genesis event here in Austin, Texas. And it's going to be the biggest one yet. Entrepreneurship has been extremely difficult. There is no simplification. You have to keep pushing through. Even when you think you're about to run out of money, if you're working hard enough, you have the faith, something will happen. It'll turn around. You'll get enough money to just keep on going. It is so mind-numbing. It is extremely stressful. You have to have extreme grit to survive entrepreneurship because there's so many times where I've wanted to just throw in the towel. So 2021, I put on my first bodybuilding show. 2022, I decided to be crazy and put on 2 bodybuilding shows, including a world championship. Now, the world championship event that me and my partners put on, they've been promoting for years and years and years. They had so much knowledge and wisdom on events that I was like, why are you looking at me to want to partner up with? I just did one show, and I've only been in bodybuilding at that point for 2 years. But they trusted me enough, and we put on an extremely successful world championship for our first year. It was an absolute success.
Wow.
That was 2022, at the end of 2022. We were already on shaky grounds with that same organization that I was a part of, that by the end of that year, me and my partners had already individually, going back to our pridefulness, we create our own pride, right? We finished that year, and in December we sat down. We had such a shaky year, and there were so many things that we weren't happy with. And I told you, I'm the type that likes to speak out against things I don't like. And it was really hard to speak out against the thing. I pushed back, and it was like, nope, this is the way we're doing things. So me and my partners got together December 2022. And they asked me, I was like, we were just discussing, as I approached the table, they tell me, we were just talking about our future with the organization. And I sat down, and here's the bottle that I had been bottled everything inside, everything let out. And I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. And on that day, I created my 4th business. We decided to separate and start our own federation of natural bodybuilding, and only natural bodybuilding. And so everything we'd worked for them past couple years, me just the past 2 years, we had to start all over. And we created our own federation, which was last year. And it was a very rocky year, but we ended really nicely. We had 6 shows all in Texas. And despite so many people not believing in us, in 2024, we have the same shows in Texas, plus 1 or 2. We found a director for Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Missouri. So now we're in 6 different states.
Yeah.
We found a connection in Florida. So now we have divisions in a 7th state. And on top of that, we were approached to be the only U.S. federation to be a part of a worldwide coalition of natural bodybuilding organization federations. And so now we're not only, in 1 year, not only do we expand to 6 other states, we expanded globally.
Holy cow.
In 1 year.
What is it, like, what all goes into opening up your own federation? Like you say that and it's just like, I don't even know.
Oh, so much.
If you can make, like, just like brief details.
Brief details to start your own federation.
Person.
Honestly, you have to have a foundation. The nice thing is we had a foundation already. When
as
we
in
started
like a foundation, as in like
as shows.
As shows? Okay.
We already had established shows, and so that was our foundation.
Okay.
I wouldn't know how somebody would start it from scratch, because even the organization that we were a part of, they started from scratch many years back.
Mm-hmm.
They had a foundation of they were already known within the bodybuilding community. So when they split up, they were already able to tap into that community and say, hey, come on over.
Mm-hmm.
So we had that, and we had our shows. So that's how we were able to at least get our own federation started. Okay. And then determination, the fact that we had each other and we were all on board with the vision.
Okay.
Of us taking over the world.
I guess a federation, could you compare that to like a conference, like NCAA for like sports? Like the difference between like NCAA and like NAIA or something like that? Or
those are college, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and each one has their own group of teams that come in and compete.
Yeah, like championships, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
I would compare it to that.
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, I would compare it to that. So, for instance, with the coalition, Onyx Naturals, we have our shows where the competitors have to pay for our memberships to compete in our specific shows. But our competitors can also compete in the coalition, which are other federations in other countries, and they can go and compete with them. And then we can all get together for a one true world championship containing everybody, all the athletes from all over the world.
Dude, that's sick. And so do you compete in your own?
No.
Okay.
It'd be unfair.
Okay.
Yeah. A little bit. The president standing in his posing trunks and taking first place. Like, come on, guys. No. So no, I'll be competing at other natural federations, organizations, and that's the whole point. Is I wanted to go out there and basically speak about our federation among other federations.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, so people know we're not going anywhere. We put so much blood, sweat, and tears, buckets of tears, into this goal, into this vision that. No, this is not. We're going to make this work.
Yeah.
So yes, I have onx.entertainment, Onx Naturals, Fuel and Burn Fitness, dtlabel, and yeah. And then
Yeah.
the 501c3 that I'm hoping for it to get finalized. So the toy drive that I have been doing this year is going to be the 5th year that I put it on, because I didn't do it in 2020 or 2021, COVID. So I finally filed for a 501c3 and hoping that that gets approved, because other than the previous years, it's been dished out of my own pockets. The past 2 years, there is an influencer online by the name of Goob that has been able to help out within his community to raise money for the toy drive, and that's been a huge success. The 2023 year Miracles of Christmas toy drive was the absolute biggest success that we've had. And I say we as in the name, because it's me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's me.
Yeah.
But I can't do it by myself. I have to get a group of volunteers that are willing to provide their time to put on this toy drive. And just to give you an idea what the toy drive looks like, there is a video on my social media account so you can kind of see it, and it paints a clear picture of the toy drive. Kids come in, they're able to select whatever toy they want from the toy section that get donated. I do have a Santa Claus, and so they're able to go sit on Santa's lap and tell them what they want for Christmas. I have 2 tables with smaller little trinket toys and books and little games that they can also get on top of the bigger toys that they can select from. And there's also bowling games, there's throwing games, just basically little games that they can play as well, that they can win prizes, but everybody wins. I actually invested in 2 bouncy houses as well, so I had that at the venue, and a little area where they can color and write letters to Santa and just decorate some stuff. So it was a big old. It's not just a toy drive where I go out and give toys to families, because I'm not about to drive to 50 homes on my own dime. I'm sorry, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
I'd rather them. I have a venue, host an event, and the families come to me, and we make it a fun event for the kids. Because there's some kids that end up wanting to stay there for at least an hour, hour and a half, just having fun, just doing it, because there's that many activities. So this coming year, if it's a 501c3, I'll be able to get bigger donations and make it that much of a bigger event.
That'd be awesome, dude.
Now, with everything that I'm talking about, the personal training, the event planning, the owning the federation, putting on these charity events. I also am the medical liaison for the Melee Fighting League MMA fighting championship here in Austin.
What the heck?
So I deal with the fighters there and making sure that they have their records and their medicals taken care of as well.
Really?
So on top of everything I just talked about, it's really hard to date.
I was gonna ask you, like, how do you have time to even meet anybody, and how has the dating culture changed since, like, as you've been in Austin, as social media has emerged and everything?
Social media has definitely changed the dating culture, and I bring that up. It's funny because people ask me, like, "Oh my God, you're so successful! You got this, that, and the other. You got everything going on for you, and you look young, and you're healthy, and you're fit, and you try to eat clean, and this." I'm like, it's a different world now. It is an absolute different one. I keep myself busy, so I don't really make time. I recently just started opening up Sundays to just be God's day and only do things I can do for Him. So multiple church services, reading the Bible. I don't know where to go to meet women. I don't know. I don't want to go to bars anymore. I know what happens there. That's where I had my fun. Okay, to be honest, but there's no wife material in bars. Let's be real. They're not there to be wives. They're there to have fun. Clubbing, even worse. It's absolutely, they're there for just a one night fun, and that's it. Definitely no wives, not even girlfriends. I don't think you can find girlfriends at clubs. I will say church is just as hard.
I would agree.
Because of that mindset of, you go in, you listen to the word, and depending on their age and depending on the maturity level, they're just like, I'm ready to get on my phone, post it on social media, God's day, peace, whatever, but get out
Yep.
and go
Peace
on with the
out.
rest of life.
Yeah.
Go to a
Yep.
coffee shop or whatever the case, or go to get mimosas, whatever girls do on Sundays. So
And
even church is as hard as
yeah,
bars.
even on top of that, like church and like Christianity as a whole, on top of the social pressures, that adds a whole nother element to the dating world that can be pretty
Mhm.
I would say annoying.
Well, like when I was
But-
growing up, we would have like lunches after church. We'd have potlucks after church, like once a month, once every 2 months, whatever. And they'd put the football game up on like the projectors, and everyone would bring food, and then you would have like 2 hours or longer after church to fellowship, eat with people, hang out. The kids were playing on the playground, all this stuff. Like, yes, our church did have growing up a big enough space for that, sure, but I just found that was where I connected with a lot of my friends, even when I was growing up. And I could see as a single guy, that would be your time to connect with the honey you saw in service and be like, hey, can I sit with you or whatever?
Mhm.
Or I don't know, just make other friends, like meet other dudes, whatever. But I rarely ever see churches doing that anymore because we only had one service. That was the thing.
Well, one thing, and I've already discussed it with y'all outside of this, I'm the type that likes to make things happen, so I'm going to make it happen. One. Two, to address your statement about the Christianity brings on an entirely different element. It brings on a fake element
Mm.
because I don't consider myself a Christian. I find it really hard and I struggle each and every single day with what it actually takes to be a Christian. I'm not there yet. I don't see myself there yet. I'm trying. Every single day I'm struggling, but every single day I struggle with sin as well. It's a constant battle. It never ends. It is so easy to throw out the word, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian, and that's what I see across the board. I go to 2 churches and I see that across the board. And I look at it and I'm like, I can't judge. I don't know what's going on in your life. But what I see, what you claim to be versus what you do, I don't want to say it's not Christian-like because it's really hard not to judge, but I'm just
It's
like,
not lining up.
It's not lining up. So it throws an awkward wrench in the dating world when it comes to Christianity. Because I think in the back of their heads, both men and women, they want to be Christians, but the flesh speaks louder still. And then they break through and don't do what they're supposed to be doing. But they will only do it to the wrong people. They will never do it to the right people. And what I mean by that is they will break their Christianity for the wrong people because it's okay. They're not Christian. They're not this, whatever the case is. It doesn't count. I'm sure you hear that a lot from women. It doesn't count. But for the right man, somebody that could be a good person, a good value in their lives, they're going to hold back. They're going to, nope, you're not sleeping with me. You're not doing this. I'm not going to give you, I'm not a virgin, but you don't get any of this. I'm going to put you through the trenches and you have to do A, B, C, D, and E, everything perfectly before I even consider being anything serious with you. But this other guy, no, that doesn't count. That was just a fling. So it's really hard to even consider dating a Christian girl, a Christian woman.
Okay, you said, I want to come back to that.
Mhm.
But you said you wouldn't consider yourself a Christian because you don't feel like you meet the requirements to be a
Not
Christian,
necessarily the requirements, because what are the requirements to be a Christian? There is a certain mindset, a certain life, certain values that you should be working to uphold at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact there's some that I don't want to let go of. Okay. I personally am making that choice, knowing full well this goes against what God wants. Or what he's asking, what he's not even asking. No, he doesn't ask. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. It's not enough just to say, I believe Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and he rose 3 days later after he was crucified. It's not enough. Once you make that statement, you truly believe it, yes. But then after that, the real work of Christianity begins. And it is a long, hard, painful road that nobody talks about.
Well, and I respect what you're saying, because what I'm hearing you say is, I'm reading my Bible, I'm praying, I'm seeking God, I'm seeking Jesus and the things that the Bible are commanding me to do. Yet I understand in myself and in my flesh, there are things that I am simply not willing to give up yet. But I'm in the arena searching, trying to give those things up. So I'm not willing to commit myself fully to Christ yet, because I know that I'm going to have to give those things up, and that's going to have to die. And so you're actively working through that. And I respect it. If that's true, if that's what I'm hearing you say, I respect that so much, because there's so many people out there that won't be honest enough to say, listen, to say exactly what you're saying. Like, I don't want to commit yet. They would rather say, oh, sure, I'm a Christian, but they're not actually following Christ, which is what you've been explaining. And so I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome that you're willing to sort of, I don't even know the words for it, but I think that's really rare, man. That's really rare that people will say they'll say what you're saying.
Well, it is.
Not many people
I find it
admit
interesting because you, like, within the last 3 or so months, you're probably the third person I've heard say something like along those lines, where, yeah, I'm pursuing Jesus and like this relationship with God and everything, but I guess they kind of are deterred from identifying themselves as a Christian, or like that label, because of like all the, I guess, social preconceived notions, whatever that come with it. But
let me say this: I don't consider myself a Christian. I do consider myself a disciple of Christ. And I need to correct myself, because it's not that I'm not willing to let go of these things. I'm willing to let go. I'm struggling because I'm struggling with faith specifically. And so when I lose faith, I fall back into the sin, because it's a comfort. I don't know how to continue to struggle, because it's overwhelming, and it has been overwhelming for the past year.
Yeah.
Just one thing after another. My ex walking out on me, losing her little girl, because I'll say this, I never ever want to date a single mom ever again, because losing a girlfriend or a fiance, which I have in the past, that's hard in and of itself. I can get over that. I'm still not over losing that her daughter, because I invested so much time, energy, and love to that little girl. She became my daughter, and it was just taken away like that. And I have no say in it. We were never married. I had no say in it.
Wow.
So I lost that. My house flooded. Had nowhere to live. I was homeless for about 2 months.
Wow.
I was staying on a buddy of mine let me stay at his house. Thankfully, I'm grateful for him. But I was sleeping on the floor on my mattress. That was my life. Just nonstop.
Yeah.
Fast forward to a couple of weeks, I had to put my dog down after 13 years. So it's just been one roller coaster after another. And this week, people were asking me, how was your week? How was your week? Wasn't good. Still grind, still continue to work, still show up, still do what I need to get done. But it is really hard to maintain the faith. I don't know how to do it. I resonate with the story of Job so much, because I have to keep reading that one over and over. It's like, he lost everything. He didn't just lose a stepchild of his. He lost all 7 kids. the
Yeah.
first time around. All his sons and daughters,
Yeah.
just in one collapse, and they were having the time of their lives.
Here's my question.
Mhm.
When you use the term Christian, are you in your head, are you defining it more as the sort of the hypocritical people you've met in church who say one thing and do the other? Or do you mean Christian as a Christ follower? Because I think a lot of times, like what Zach's saying, there's a growing number of people who are associating the word Christian with hypocrite.
Mhm.
And they choose instead to use a phrase like, I'm just a follower of Christ,
Mhm.
because that's a more clear cut definition of what they're really doing. They're following Christ. They're not subscribing to the Christian culture. It seems like
I like
you're
that.
making
I
that
like
distinction.
that. No, I have no problem with the hypocrites of the Christian hypocrites, because it's almost like we all are Christian
Right.
Yeah, for
hypocrites.
sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
are part of that. No,
Everyone falls short.
yeah, and that's where we know that everybody falls short. No, I have no problem with that. I would love to use a label of being a Christian. I just don't feel that that's appropriate for me. But if I say I'm a disciple, I'm trying to learn and get into that mindset, because the way you describe your fathers, that's how I want to be. Your fathers are Christians by definition. They do everything. I'm not going to say everything right, but for the most part, they have done a lot of good. Okay. I'm not there yet. I'm not a good person.
Do you feel like you have to be a good person to accept Christ as your Savior? Like, do you feel like you need to work to be this good person before you can accept Christ?
No.
Okay.
No, you can absolutely accept Christ before you're a good person.
I'm just asking you.
Yeah. No. And even for me, I've already accepted Christ. I've accepted Christ many years ago, even before. I've never taken on the title of Christianity because I knew I wasn't a Christian. I was doing things against what it says in the Bible.
Mhm.
What's the word? Purposely, knowingly going against what it says to be in the Bible. And that's the difference. So now I'm fighting to have the faith. I'm working, I'm reading, I'm praying to have the faith full-fledged. And now when I knowingly fall, I'm not falling because I'm just saying, it's only this, it's only that, it's okay. I'm not doing anything terrible. No, I'm falling because of the suffrage that I just don't know how else to cope with the situation at the time. So that's when I fall. And before I wouldn't regret it. I would just knowingly and willingly do it. Now I regret it. I do regret doing the sin.
You're convicted.
I'm convicted, and I repent, and I ask for forgiveness before I didn't ask for forgiveness. So there's a difference between back then and now. So no, I've never believed that you have to be perfect in order to accept Christ, by no means. But to claim the role of Christian, being a Christian, I think I should have a little better control of my flesh than I do now. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. And there's been times when I've done really, really great, and then something happens and I fall. And then I go back to being
my question then would be, who in the world could you consider Christian then? By those terms.
Starting with your fathers. I consider you two Christians.
But
the behavior you're describing is exactly what I relate with.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
I think you're holding yourself to a higher standard than what Jesus is asking of you. All Jesus asks is for you to bring yourself. He's not asking you to bring your good works. He's not asking you to cleanse yourself
100%.
before you come to him.
100%.
He's saying, I'm ready. He's saying, I already did that for you. And the fact that you are convicted when you do mess up, to me, shows
there's the heart change.
It shows that you've already been transformed. So what you're experiencing right now is sanctification. You're falling and you're dealing with habits of sin, which everyone has. And you may say, well, Some people have it less than this and that, but it's hard to know. It's
That's
hard to know.
right.
I
And
think
it
you're
also
just
doesn't-
more truthful
Yeah.
about it than other people. So it seems like you're dealing with more.
Yeah. It also doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of Jesus's grace, is that the man that breaks one law is just as guilty as the man who breaks all the laws.
Mhm.
And so, I'm sitting here like listening to you say all this stuff, and I'm just like, dang, like I feel the same. I have the same feelings.
I'm just as guilty.
Yeah, I'm just as guilty. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I would consider myself a follower of Christ, a disciple of Christ, and I guess I've called myself a Christian, but yeah, I don't know.
I would venture as far to say this in just the short time we've known each other.
Mhm.
It is the human fleshly need. It is the human desire to cleanse ourselves before we come into holiness that keeps us from being in a relationship with God. And God, Jesus, is saying, I want to give you my righteousness. So instead of us having to come forth and make ourselves righteous before we enter his presence, we're now under that grace. And it's not cheap grace.
Mm-hmm.
You're not describing cheap grace. You are describing the deep, bottomless pit of God's grace. And you're saying, wow, I'm not enough. I'm not enough. But God, but Jesus who sacrificed himself. Because of that, I can count myself worthy. I can count myself as a holy priesthood, a royal nation, a people for his possession, is what the Bible says. And that is the beautiful thing about Christianity, is your testimony is, guess what? I still fall short but
Mm-hmm.
I'm now under this beautiful constitution of grace by which I don't say, oh, I don't regret the sin I just did. No, I grieve it. I grieve it because it reminds me how unholy I really am and how much of a need in Jesus I truly have. That's why he said, you must crucify yourself daily and pick up my cross, because it's not a one-time event. You are saved, like you are under that salvation, which is what we believe. And it's also a daily discipline. So all you're describing, I believe, from just a short time I've heard you speak, is the daily struggle of sanctification.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of what Paul says. I forget where exactly in the Bible, but it talks about how, like, I hate that I do the things that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And he wrestles with that. This is Paul, like one of the greatest voices in all of Christianity, so it's really interesting.
It's interesting for us to hear you say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I'm going to finish with this, because you hit it on the nail of why I'm struggling so much and stay away from the term Christian, and why I don't feel there despite everything that I'm working towards. I cannot feel worthy.
That's real, man. That's so real. That is so freaking real. That's it.
Yeah. You know what? Like, I think a lot of it goes back to what you were talking about, is our inner pride. I think you have to humble yourself to be able to accept Christ's grace and his mercy. Because I think that's a lot of times the trap I fall into when I fall into sin or whatever. I beat myself down. I'm like, dude, like, why can't I just do things right? Like, why do I constantly fall into this thing over and over again, right? And in a way, I'm like almost punishing myself because I feel like it's what I deserve. But that's never going to help anything, because it's almost like I am trying to correct my, I guess, righteousness or whatever, like on my own strength. Instead, I have to just accept, okay, like I've messed up. And obviously I'm going to keep trying. I'm not going to just be okay with the fact that I've fallen, but it's the change of mentality where, okay, I can just accept that Christ loves me despite my failures. and live in that freedom. And that, I mean, it's not easy to do.
That's a daily struggle for me.
Yeah, it's
daily.
Same. Sometimes like hourly.
Hourly.
It feels like. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll say this. This is why I wear the cross on my hand now, because it's my constant, not even daily reminder, just constant reminder that I'm trying.
I feel like this is something I've been thinking about over the past few months. But this whole thing, you're talking about entrepreneurship and this mindset you have to make it in entrepreneurship, that grit, just to keep going. Even when you feel like everything is just, going south and there's nothing you can do about it. I've been thinking, because I've listened to other entrepreneurs, people who have been really successful, and they say a lot of those things. And I've just been kind of pondering this idea of, dang, like, what if Christians, me included, what if we could take that mindset and apply it to our faith? That, because the faith is not an easy journey. That, like, being a disciple of Christ is, it is extremely difficult. And a lot of times, we don't see the reward right away. And a lot of times it does seem like, God, you're like my savior. You're supposed to keep, my foot from striking the stone, or whatever. I forget how that verse goes, but we don't. A lot of times it just seems like everything around us is just going wrong. And so I think in a lot of ways, same with entrepreneurship, if we can keep that grit in our faith, then you never know when or how or God's going to pull you through. And truthfully, I think sometimes, I think sometimes you might not ever, until, even until death, because that's the true ultimate hope of Christianity.
The ultimate goal,
is eternal, everlasting life with Him. So you may not ever see the fruit of your works as a believer in this life, and that's a hard thing to accept sometimes. But yeah, I think in a lot of ways that grit you're talking about can be applied to our faith. And
I think what makes it difficult, the grit between entrepreneurship and faith, because I 100% agree, you do need a little bit of grit. Actually, no, a lot. The grit in entrepreneurship can potentially reap rewards, tangible, visual rewards. The grit with Christianity, you have to just wait until the very, very, very end.
Right.
It may reap rewards in terms of better patience, better compassion, understanding of people, the fruits of the Spirit, but they're not always so tangible. Until it normally takes a long life of faith to really be able to hold and exemplify maybe what you would see as our fathers in that type of respect, whereas they've spent however many decades pursuing a life of faith. It takes a lot longer. Entrepreneurship can as well, of course, but the results are often more seen by other people, validated, understood, but the fruits of the Spirit are less so normally in terms of the validation that you'll receive from people, and that eternal hope and that eternal reward is getting to heaven and hearing God say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." That is the words of affirmation that seeking our faith really and truly is the prize for me. As someone who's like love language is words of affirmation, that's the words of affirmation I try to remember to focus on. Versus entrepreneurship, it can be so quick as to say, "Oh, I liked that podcast, man. Continue doing that. Oh, dude, you look shredded up there, bro. That's awesome. Like, I really want to be like you." It's the words of man that can be a little bit more tempting, or it's more short term, I would say, than the long term of getting to heaven and God saying, "Well done. You did your duty." It's like,
And we have to have faith in that.
exactly.
And because the words of man are tempting because we hear them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The tangible items in the world, we can touch them, we can see them, we can experience them.
Great point.
When it comes to God, unless you've had a vision, unless you hear him, unless any of those things happen, you may not hear anything until the very end. You may get blessed throughout the life, here and there, maybe not to what your expectations were, but you have to have faith until the very end.
Man.
And here's the other scary part that not a lot of Christians think about. It could all be fake.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's always that possibility.
Yep.
That's true. And that's part of the faith, right?
That's part of the
Yeah.
faith.
If it was 100%, why would you need to have faith?
Right.
If you knew 100% that God was real, the Bible was real, Jesus rose from the dead, ascended to heaven, and he's there waiting for you right now, why would you have faith if you knew 100%? That's the point I think that we're getting at. But I want to be respectful of our time, dude. This blessed me so much, this whole conversation. It's so cool to see you jump out of a secure career into something like entrepreneurship and succeed the way you have. And not only that, but be humble enough to come on a podcast that has 50 viewers per podcast and be willing to have a conversation and share your vulnerability that I do not take for granted. And we will have all of your stuff linked up in our description, all of your handles, everything. Go check them out. You heard the dates for everything. So
yes, there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of things. So we are going to be doing a potluck luncheon after Sunday service, and I'm going to see if I can't pull together something by the 24th of February, 2 weeks after Valentine's Day, for all the singles and everybody. Actually, no, it's just potluck for everybody, right?
I don't know.
Freedom?
I will find a venue.
Oh,
that's what I do. I put on events.
Well, heck yeah, dude.
I put on events, yeah, but invite everybody afterwards. If they're able to make the space at Freedom, that'd be great. If not, we could find it somewhere else. Yeah, I'm that type. I don't wait around for others to do it. I make things happen.
And is it okay to say that if people have questions for you, they can reach out to you in your DMs on Instagram?
Everything. DMs, emails, text. I would say phone call, but I ain't going to answer. I'll be honest with you. I'm always doing something.
Well, because we'll have your Instagram linked in the bio, all your Instagrams. So if you have a question, feedback, thoughts, questions about what you heard here,
gripes, complaints, concerns, call me bigoted, call me whatever.
We've already got hate comments, dude, so you can join the club.
I was going to say, no, and I say that because there's some people are ugly, but it's all right. I'll take it.
That means you're doing something right if people are riled up about what you're saying. You're at least not vanilla.
Oh, so. Anything but. I think that's another reason why I'm single, is I'm extremely truthful.
That's a good
I'm
quality.
very honest. I'm very honest. Well, we could talk about that later. But yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
We got to have you back, man. We got to have you back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to be back. It'd be nice to do something after my competition season.
Yes. That'd be interesting to hear about how it went.
Right when I turn 40.
Yes, dude. That'd be so much. That'd be so fun.
So when is that?
It's like 6 months from now.
The end of my competition. My last show was in August.
Okay.
In August. Yep.
Perfect.
Dang.
Yeah, I'm gonna be. I've been dieting since November, so I'm 4 months.
Yeah.
4 months dieting, and I still got 6 months to go.
Wow.
Dang, 6 months.
Right.
I look good though. You can see my pictures online.
Well, everyone, stay tuned. 6 months from now, you're gonna get the recap from his experience. And thanks for listening.
Yes.
Peace out.
It's a wrap.
The recap, that'll be really, really good. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, that'll be.
Yeah.
Not now. Later. No, now.